Hey everybody, this is the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Josh Peak, and let's get it started, shall we? You recording? Yeah, recording. Okay, here we go. Hello everybody, and today happens to be the 182nd episode, January 21st, 2020. Thank you to everybody for tuning in on a regular basis. I appreciate it. I got a lot of feedback this past week from the podcast that I did with No Cash, Beyond. And thank you to everybody who reached out and told me they really enjoyed it. I was hoping to bridge community and to invite him to talk about his own process and his own struggles and his own situation. And listen, everybody has a story, and every story should be heard. We live in a time where we have instant access to each other across the world through our phones, through these supercomputers that we carry around in our pockets. And yet sometimes we tend to not even talk to the person sitting next to us at a restaurant. Here was an opportunity where I got to meet with him at the local taco place, King Hefe. You guys have heard me talk about them a lot. And the bartender there, I'm sitting at the counter, Danny goes, "Hey, you guys should talk. Y'all should communicate. I think you have a lot in common." And he was right. We have very different backgrounds, but we have a lot of similarities between us. And that was kind of the goal of what I saw when we first talked. I heard his story, and immediately I thought, wow, this is something that other people need to hear. This is something that if we allow ourselves to get out of the way and have conversations with people, we learn about the people more than we judge them. See, this is one of the things that I've always been against. I'm a big fan of the hidden thing, the hidden reveal of a person. The Frankenstein story. Here's a monster, Frankenstein, who at the end of the day just wants to play with the little girl and pick flowers and enjoy the beauty of life. And instead he's cast out as a monster and they try to kill him, and so he reacts. And there is that duality of life that I enjoy, that I really relish. I like the person that you don't think is going to do something, does something. It's like, what is it? Like Cold Mountain, for example, okay? You got these hillbillies out there running through the woods, and this giant man, this actor, sings with a very beautiful, soft and tender voice. Or, you have some action hero comic book type thing, and the breakout hero of the thing is a child or something like that. It's the big reveal. It's the, oh my gosh, I would have never thought that kind of situation. Growing up, I had many examples of that. I had people around me that if you looked at them, you would think, oh, they're not, this type of person. And then when you get to know them, you go, oh, there's way more to them than you see. And I like that. I like that about everybody. And that's true about everybody. If you talk to people, you'll find out there's more depth to them than what you see. The hard part is boiling it down into a simple conversation. Kind of like Dad and I talked about when I was like, "How are you doing?" He goes, "Fine." "I'm not fine." Let's talk about the word fine. Let's talk about how you communicate in a conversation. You meet somebody and you're like, "How you doing?" "Fine." I mean, I got all that crap going on, but you don't want to hear about that. And that's really the truth of it. I mean, I went to a 20th high school reunion years ago, and I keep bumping into people that recognize me, but I've got a crappy memory, and honestly, the people I remember are either the people that I was still friends with, that I kept in contact with every step of the way, or people that I knew because they were the popular kids, and they never talked to me and never gave a crap about me, so I felt like, okay, why should I bother with you? But then there was a lot of people who recognized me, but I didn't recognize them because I was oblivious. I was stuck in the middle of the, trying to figure life out and grow and blah, blah, blah. And I don't have the kind of memory that I can recall everybody. I've never had that kind of memory. But on top of it, going in the Marine Corps and dealing with the stresses and the pressures of learning things there sort of pushes out memories you don't think you need anymore. It's sort of like going through a filing cabinet and throwing away files you don't think are important. You're just like, yep, don't need that information. Never served me. Yeah, this is life or death now. We deal with life and death. This is the important files. We keep these files on the front of our brain. The rest of this crap, just push it away. And I've talked about that before. I talked about how, before I joined, I used to be able to sing all kind of music with my friends and know all the lyrics by heart and stuff like that. And then I found myself in my car listening to music I should know and can't recall any of the lyrics. And it's taken me years to recall any of that stuff. I mean, it's just like information just got pushed out of my brain. Well, that happens as we get older. And as we get older, our memories fail because we cram it full of more and more information all the time. Whether it's a change in job, whether it's stuff in your family, whether it's relationships that you have, you're always pushing information aside to make room for more information. So when I go to the reunion and somebody randomly walks up and says, "What you been up to?" Well, I mean, a lot. But I mean, I don't know if you want to hear it all. So what I'll say is, joined the Marine Corps, raised 2 kids, married, divorced, started over. I mean, do you want the boiled down version? Do you want to know the parts that make me beautiful in this little simple conversation of what you've been up to? Random person that I should remember, but I don't, and I apologize. Kind of makes you think. So I guess the point of this is, every interaction that you have is for a purpose. Take a moment, stop, and talk to people, and realize what that purpose is. Maybe you're meant to talk to them because you're going to learn something from them, or maybe you're meant to talk to them because they're going to learn something from you. Maybe you learn that, hey, they're boring and I don't want to talk to them. Who knows? I don't know. The point is, we're on this earth for a reason, and that reason is to help each other, interact with one another, put down your phone, interact with the person in front of you. I can't tell you how many times I've been out to dinner and seen people sitting there that are supposed to be together, and they don't say one word to each other. They're on their phones the entire time. Have a conversation with the person you're with. Tell them about your hopes and fears and silly thoughts, and culminate a friendship from it or a relationship from it. The phone is not going to be your buddy. It is access, but it's not your friend. So anyway, enough about that. I just wanted to thank everybody, basically. I know that was a roundabout way of doing all of that. So here we go. I want to talk about some stuff I heard. I didn't get a chance to do that on the last 2 podcasts because I was having conversations with my dad and with Cash. And so I wrote notes of things I wanted to talk about, and I just kept piling on notes. And I was like, well, there's another thing, and here's another thing, and here's another thing. So I may go through these quicker than I hope, but I want to talk about all of it because it is stuff I heard. So let's start off with Wife of the Party, episode 102. That is Bert Kreischer's wife, Leanne Kreischer. She did an interview with her husband, Bert, who's a stand-up comedian, and their youngest daughter, Isla. Now, if you know anything about Bert, you've heard him talk about his daughter, Isla, who has a very creative mind in the way she thinks about things and the way she talks. The problem is it doesn't come across in a podcast form. She's not comfortable yet having conversations openly, but you do get nuggets of her personality in this conversation. There's moments where she says stuff that's very quick-witted and a very interesting way of looking at it. But overall, this thing of the 3 of them hanging out is actually very boring to listen to. I hate to say it, but it is. And I would sure say that if any of them listened to it, they would also say, this is kind of boring. But I mean, listen, we're all guilty of making boring content at times. And there are moments in this conversation later on where Bert gets very sentimental, and you can tell that he understands the stress of being a dad and what it means to him and how it reflects how he grew up with his dad. And so, I mean, if you're a fan of Bert, if you're a fan of Leanne, you're going to enjoy this. It's going to be hard to struggle through the first part because it's like pulling teeth to get things started. But again, I'm a fan, so I listen to it. I also, shortly thereafter, watched on Amazon Prime the show Jack Ryan. The 2nd season came out. It stars John Krasinski, and you'll know him as soon as you see him. You're like, oh, that guy, yeah. I mean, he's been in all kinds of stuff. I think he was in The Office. I didn't watch The Office. I know people right now are like, you didn't watch The Office? Oh my God. Anyway, he's very funny on a lot of things. He's not funny in this. This is a very serious role. He's playing this special ops kind of guy that's just, really smart, and it's interesting. I did enjoy season 1. I know it was a lot of character introduction, and you're supposed to learn who this guy is, and he's like a former combat Marine who got injured. Now he's got like a financial job within the, I'm guessing, FBI, I think. I don't know. This is called Stuff I Heard, Not Stuff I Know. And he follows the money of any kind of terrorist thing that goes on. So that's supposed to be his shtick. Like, oh, I figured it out because I followed the money, and this is what's really going on. And so the first season carries over to the second season, and it's more of the same. Wendell Price is in this. As soon as you see him, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I've seen him in lots of stuff. And so is Michael Kelly. Michael Kelly is in House of Cards every season, and he's a tremendous actor. It's weird how this role that he's playing in this is very similar to his other role, and I don't know if it's typecasting or if it's like, hey, this guy's really convincing as this inside knowledgeable, sort of scary guy that seems to know everything all the time. But he's probably the best actor in the whole show. Excuse me. This is the second season, and they sort of talk about things that are really going on in the news. They talk about Venezuela and how there are nuclear ties in Venezuela to Russia. And there's a fear that Venezuela would have nuclear weapons and that they would direct their weapons towards America. There is a dictator that's up for re-election in this show, and during the process of trying to negotiate with them and find out information before they react, a senator who's supposed to be a friend of Jack Ryan's is killed. Okay, I'm not giving anything away. This is all in the previews. This is just what you're going to get in the previews. So if you're interested in the show, it's a good show. There is a lot of information in this show about Venezuela. I didn't realize that they were as rich as they were. I didn't realize that they were ruled under a dictator. I didn't realize that they voted. There's a lot of shady stuff that goes on in all of this, and it's pretty fascinating. So yeah, check out Jack Ryan on Amazon Prime. It's pretty darn good. Then after that, I listened to some podcasts. I listened to Dr. Drew After Dark, episode 48, with Kate Kennedy. Kate Kennedy is weirdly enough, a comedian and an adult film actress. The Dr. Drew podcast, they do a lot of, question and answer about situations and, how did you get started in comedy? How did you get started in film? How did you do, just finding out about the person. And then they answer, they answer emails and phone messages and stuff like that, video calls where people ask questions. And with her history, she's very funny, and she also has a lot of understanding about what these weird folks call in about with their situations, and she can kind of sympathize and go, okay, well, I know what's going on here. And she kind of cuts to it really quickly, which is interesting. I haven't heard her do comedy. I've never seen her do porn. I just looked her up recently, and I was like, oh, that's a lot of information. But she's very fascinating. I could see her doing a podcast. I could see where she is good at comedy. I mean, she tells a couple of jokes on the show that's pretty funny. But anyway, very interesting person. I also listened to the very next episode, which was 49. It's called No SH Weird Sign T November. I guess they're trying to get around saying a dirty word. But anyway, no shit November with Emmy Emyai. I don't know how you pronounce that. I'm thinking he works on the show as a behind the scenes guy that runs equipment. It seems to be one of the themes of the show is they interview people, but then like celebrities, but then after a while they go, all right, well, let's just talk to you guys in here. And this guy apparently is famous for not using the bathroom but maybe once a month or once every other week, and it's just mind-blowing. Dr. Drew talks to him about a situation, about how he can't seem to have a bowel movement, and there was some trauma when he was a kid, and that's why he can't seem to go, and it's all tied in psychologically. But Drew kind of breaks it down as to what the fears of it are and what he's concerned about, and how some of it's okay. But I've never heard of anybody not using the bathroom but a couple of times a month or once a month. That's just crazy. I don't know how he does it. I mean, do you just not eat? Because your body, I learned this recently, but your body continues to produce waste even after you're dead. So if you don't eat, your body still continues to produce waste. So is this guy like super real thin? I don't know. I didn't Google the guy. Such a weird situation. This is just one of the examples of what Dr. Drew After Dark is about. It's just the extreme versions of life, and let's talk to a healthcare professional about it, and he'll find something to talk about in it, and he'll also find the funny in it. I think Dr. Drew really has a comedic heart, so he always finds some humor in it. But he's a healthcare professional, so he does have a responsibility, and he talks about the fact that, hey, this is concerning. This is something you should think about. But it's all for entertainment. This is what this show's about. This is not his healthcare show. This is his entertainment show, which I enjoy. So anyway, I listened to the Bertcast, episode 383 with Sam Morrell. Sam has a couple podcasts. He does one called Keeping Joe and one called Pod Don't Lie. He talks a lot about athletes and cheating athletes and athletes who had sex with underage kids, and it's just one of his fascinations is these athletes who seem to get away with committing crimes and still somehow have a career. He even mentions Karl Malone in this. Listen, I don't know if this is true or not. This is the Stuff I Heard podcast, so I heard it secondhand from him on a podcast. He talks about Karl Malone like impregnating a 13-year-old at one point, and I was like, what? Didn't know about that. Don't even know if it's true. Please don't come after me if it's not. I don't know. I didn't even Google it. I was just like, holy crap. And I didn't know if I should even mention it, but it was just one of those holy crap things that this guy said. He said it on a podcast, so I'm just telling you what I heard. Okay? So anyway, then I listened to the very next thing, which is another behind the scenes of Something's Burning. Episode 12 of that. This is the audio, unedited, everything, with a YouTube star, Grace Helbrig, H-E-L-B, am I reading this right? Grace Helbig, H-E-L-B-I-G, and a comedian, Brooks Wheelan. On the show, they talk about how they're in a relationship, which I think since then they've ended, but they're in a relationship during the taping of this Something's Burning on YouTube. And Brooks Wheelan had an idea for a show on YouTube called Travels and Such. And they sort of source it out in this episode and come up with the idea of what the show is going to be called. So I've looked it up on YouTube. I've watched one of the episodes. I think there's only 2 up. I don't think it was a big hit. But it was an interesting idea. He just wanted to go camping with friends and like show, I guess, as a show, what it would be like to go camping with his friends. So anyway, it's kind of a weird idea, but whatever. Content is content, and you never know who your audience is going to be, right? I mean, this guy I know started a podcast called Stuff I Heard, and here we are. How about that? So anyway, sort of, I don't know, whatever. So anyway, I listened to another podcast, Two Bears, One Cave. Episode 17 came out, and it's Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura talking about being dads, what it was like having their fathers. Tom Segura talks a lot about his dad being in the Marine Corps in Vietnam, and the horrible stuff that he saw there. I think it was Vietnam. I may be wrong on that. I think I'm right. Talks about him, being a man and dealing with not so much killing the enemy, but just the sad reality of I came back and my friends didn't, or the guys I served with didn't. And it's a weird reflection. Bert talks about his dad going into the draft, and they started asking him questions, and they asked him if he had asthma, and he said yes, and they go, okay, we don't need you. And so he didn't serve because he had asthma. He didn't know that was a thing. He was like, oh, yeah, I got asthma. But anyway, they talk about what it's like to grow up watching their fathers and trying to emulate their fathers in a way, but also realizing some faults in their fathers and sort of, paving their own path with their kids. And listen, there is no book that's going to tell you this is the way you should be a parent. This is the way you should be a dad. This is the way, whatever you want to say after that. Okay? And if there is a book, they're usually wrong because it's their experience. Your experience is different than everyone else's. I can tell you, I raised 3 kids. I don't know if I did a good job. I tried. That's the main thing I can say. I tried. I made an effort. I was here every day. I showed up. I may have been a pain in the butt. I may have done it all wrong. But I tried. And that's all we can do. That's all we hope to do. I mean, you know, I'm sure this thing goes in waves where, you know, people overparent or they don't parent enough or they're not around enough or they're busy. And then, you know, sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it has nothing to do with parenting. Sometimes it's outside influences. But, I don't know. There's a very tender moment in here where Bert's talking about his dad never crying. And it's very sweet. So anyway. So I went down a deep dive of Joe Rogan, looking through, just scanning podcasts that I'd missed. I was like, ooh, there is a treasure trove of podcasts to listen to. I listened to episode 1411 with Robert Downey Jr. He talks about getting older, about his eyesight getting much worse. He keeps having to change his prescription of his reading glasses so that he can read things. He talks about how he sort of enjoys the fact that his eyesight is failing. He said I like it. I like knowing that this is happening. I like the process. I like acknowledging it and accepting it. And it's very interesting to hear him say that. Most people fight it tooth and nail, and he's like, yeah, it's supposed to happen. Like, this is normal. He talks about the role of Iron Man, about playing Iron Man, about, you know, letting that character kind of go away, playing it for the last time, and just, you know, and Joe tries to talk him into, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you came back just one more time? And he tells him a scenario that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a very interesting podcast. It's a very short one for Joe. Joe normally does 3-hour podcasts. This one's just over an hour. So anyway, really enjoyed it. Robert talks about his dad. They talk about his role in Tropic Thunder and how that role could never be redone today. If they did, it would be very difficult. If you've never seen Tropic Thunder, it was sort of a poke at celebrity and how celebrities think they're better than everybody else and they can get away with anything because they're special, and they're not. So the whole thing is, like, a lot of people took it seriously, but it's just a joke on top of a joke. The whole movie. But anyway, then I listened to episode 1413 with Bill Maher. I recognize the name Bill Maher. I grew up watching Bill Maher do stand-up comedy, and then he had a show on TV where he used to do these, you know, political commentary shows, and he got very, very political for a while, and that's when I stopped listening to him. But he's on here talking to Joe, and they talk about comedy, and they talk about politics, and they get real into it. And Bill kind of bullies him into doing something with him in the future, and I don't know if Joe will do it or if he just accepted just to get Bill to shut up. But it's interesting to hear. There was a lot of information in there that I didn't expect to hear. And it was surprising to know that he's very open-minded about a lot of things, because the more he learns, the more he realizes I can't put my faith in one thing. I have to listen to every argument. So that was very fascinating. Then I went down and listened to episode 1412 with Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is a comedian, a podcaster, and a political commentator. He has a YouTube show and a podcast called The Jimmy Dore Show. He is very knowledgeable, and he goes on rants about politics a lot. And one of his biggest aggravations is the fact that everybody in politics is lying, and everything that seems to be blamed for certain things in public is not actually true. Like, he calls out everybody in this. Like, if you're a fan of politics, you'll be a fan of Jimmy Dore, because he will call out everybody on all of their BS. He talks about, you know, Clinton and Obama and Trump and Bush, and I mean, just on and on and on. And he's like, listen, this is where all these people are failing you. This is where everybody's doing the wrong thing. And he does it in a very interesting way that gets you gets you compelled to listen. They talk a lot about the Democratic National Committee and how they're trying to prop up Elizabeth Warren, and meanwhile she's apparently been caught lying about Bernie Sanders, and on top of the fact that she for a long time made her career saying she was Native American, and when they did the DNA test, she's only like 1/1000th of a percent of DNA in Native American. And, she served as a Republican until she was 47, and then she switched over to the Democratic Party, and all this crazy stuff about how the DNC is really pushing her forward because they don't want Bernie, because they don't like the fact that Bernie just says what's on his mind and tells the truth and is not for the big war machine. And meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren's willing to get on board with all of it. And even today, I saw on the Twitter feed that Hillary Clinton's came out and she's talking trash about Bernie Sanders, and I'm like, you're not even in this fight. Why are you it's in the news after the election that she had the DNC interfere in everything that had to do with him running for president. And I thought, that's just dirty. Like, all of it's dirty. All this politics crap is dirty. And the only thing they all agree on is that Tulsi Gabbard is the only candidate that seems to be running with no dirt. She's not taking any money from anybody. She's not a billionaire like a couple of these idiots. She's just a person who is serving, service over self. That's her motto. She's out here hitting the campaign trail. She's asking people for funds so that she can run. She's going everywhere. She's getting my vote. Listen, the primary is on a Saturday. I don't know why it's on a Saturday. Saturday the 29th of February. The Democratic SC primary. I'm not going to be in town that weekend. Crap, I got to go do an absentee ballot. But I'm going to make sure to put her name on it. I want her to at least be an option. She may not win against Trump. But listen, she's my option. She's the one that I'm voting for. I like what she has to say. I like her level-headedness. I like the fact that she's trying to help the infrastructure of America and not get us into further wars. She is currently serving active duty. She is currently serving in the 6th Congressional District. The 6th or 2nd? 2nd Congressional District of Hawaii. Service over self. She's walking the walk and talking the talk. If you haven't heard about her, do some research. She impresses me. She impresses every one of these people that talk about political stuff. They all revere her as oh yeah, I'm really impressed with her. The Democratic committee's never going to give her a chance. They're never going to fund her. They're never going to get behind her. They're never going to promote her. They don't want her. She's anti-establishment. They don't want her. That's why I like her. I don't want somebody to pat me on the back for what I'm passionate about and I feel like I'm doing the right thing. I want to do the right thing because I know it's the right thing. She's the same kind of way. I dig that. Then I listened to Joe Rogan's episode 1414 with Mike Baker. Mike Baker is an ex-CIA operative. He talks a lot about politics in this. He talks a lot about the corruption that he sees. He also is for Tulsi Gabbard. He talks a lot about things that are going on that maybe we shouldn't know about. He's got a lot of black ops information, and now that he's out of the CIA, he has a show on TV that's kind of addressing some of this stuff. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about the hyperspeed missiles that Russia has. That's like 5 times the speed of sound, and he addresses that. And so, Mike is an interesting guy. He's been on Joe's podcast many times. I value what he says. This is a guy who knows some stuff, and he can speak about some things. He can't say everything he knows, but he can speak about some things on the level that, hey, here's some information the American people should know, which I enjoy. Then I listened to episode 1409 with Joey Diaz. I'm going to see Joey Diaz in Atlanta with my friends this weekend, as a matter of fact. He's going to be performing at the Tabernacle in Atlanta. I'm going with my buddy Josh Treadaway, Greg Steele, and I'm meeting my brother down there. And we're going to have some laughs, get together, have a little bonding time, probably some dinner, maybe a few drinks. Get to watch Joey Diaz do his thing. Looking forward to it. This is a good conversation as well. You know, Joey and Joe are good friends. It's pretty awesome. So anyway, here's a couple things that I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about or whatever, but this is stuff I heard. Okay, so I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm watching a couple shows right now on Netflix. I started to watch Narcos. Have you ever watched Narcos? It's been out for a while. I want to say it's like 3 or 4 seasons. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's 3 seasons, like 10 episodes a season. And I don't know if it's done or if that's just all they've recorded so far. I just got started. I was flipping the channels looking for something to watch, and I landed on this. This is basically the story of Pablo Escobar. This is the guy who's responsible for cocaine everywhere. I mean, everywhere. This guy is probably one of the richest people in history anywhere, and it's all through cocaine. This shows the beginnings. This shows this guy named Cockroach who invented cocaine, and he goes to sell it to Pablo as something that he thinks would sell because he calls it a diuretic. He's like, yeah, it makes you skinny, it makes you go to the bathroom a lot, but it makes you skinny. You know? I think it'll be a big hit in this country and that country, and he's talking about local places near them, and Pablo kind of takes a quick assessment of it, and he goes, I think it'll be big in Miami. Like he immediately has a global view of where this would sell well, and he was right. And it shows a lot of corruption, a lot of murders. This is a pretty dark show when you get to see the truth of what happened, but they do it in a dramatic form, having actors play the parts, and of course they take liberties because they got to make a show. One of the characters in the show is the guy who plays the Mandalorian, Pablo Pascal. He's in it, and you know, this is a very cool show because you get to see a little bit of history. They do splash in actual news videos and headlines and real things that happened during this drug war that went on, and it's terrifying and also amazing. I know you're not supposed to say it's amazing that all these people died, but it's amazing that this happened. I mean, when you look back at history, you're like, whoa, I cannot believe this happened. This guy had so much money. I think I heard it from Joe one time that at one point rats were eating over $1 million a day because it was just rotting. He had it in fact in these warehouses and stuff, and it was just rotting. I'm only watching so far. I'm only on, like, I don't know, episode 6 or 7. But there is a moment where he's at war with his country, with the military, with the police in the area, and he basically puts out a warrant for any of his people. If they kill a police officer, they get $1 million per officer. He's just like, yeah, I'll pay you $1 million. Like, he went to war with his own country. It's crazy. It is crazy. At one point, he gets kicked out of his country. Not, you know, I'm not giving away everything. This is, you can probably figure this out if you look at the history of it. At one point, he gets kicked out of his country, and he offers them to pay off their national debt if they just exonerate him of his charges. And they're like, no. He goes, okay, then it's war. Next thing you see, he's showing up in town with tanks and stuff. And I'm like, whoa, holy cow, this went dark fast. Anyway, it's a fascinating story about a fascinating person in history, and I'm excited to see more. I did veer off of it, though, because there's other shows that are coming up. I'm a big fan of a lot of the shows that are coming out now. I think this coming weekend, Sabrina the Teenage Witch season 3 comes out, and I dig the show. I don't know what it is about it. It's campy, it's goofy, it's a bit dark, but I like the characters, I like the development, and I like the show. But this past week, there was a show that came out that I watched season 1 of and loved, and I know it's a little uncomfortable to say, but it's called Sex Education. That's the name of the show. This is season 2. The star of the show is Gillian Anderson. You may know her from The X-Files. She played Scully. In this, she's a British lady who's like a sex expert, counselor person, and she's raising her teenage boy. Well, in season 1, her teenage boy has listened to her talk around the corner where she's giving counseling information to people. And he's gone to school, and for whatever reason, he's found himself giving advice to someone about an issue that he's heard about. And it helps this person, and they feel compelled to pay him for his services. And he hooks up with this girl that becomes his buddy, that he sort of has a fondness for, and she starts figuring out a way to charge for his services. Again, he's supposed to be like a 16-year-old kid. He doesn't really know anything. He's just giving some advice, and some of the advice is good advice. But again, he's a kid, and the show just continues on from there with craziness. After watching all of season 2 in a day, basically, I enjoy the show way more than I expected. I thought it would be cute. I enjoy watching Gillian Anderson because I think she's very attractive, and the role seemed to be kind of funny. She's playing around with the role a lot on her social media, where she's, posing with, fake dildos and or dicks and stuff like that, and vaginas, and she's holding them up to the camera, and she's like, "Oh, time to go to work." It's silly, but this is something that affects our lives, whether we want to talk about it or not. And for some reason in America, we're very prudish in the fact that we don't talk about sex. We talk about murder all the time. I just went on a rant telling you how much I enjoyed watching Pablo Escobar murder all these people, even though it was a horrible thing. And yet I'm uncomfortable talking to you about the title of the show called Sex Education, which we should all have, okay? This is something that we deal with on a regular basis. This affects our lives in way more than Pablo Escobar does, because this has something to do with all of us. Whether it's a situation, they talk about everything in this show. They talk about losing your virginity. They talk about asexuality. They talk about bisexuality. They talk about self-love. They talk about, what did I write? Oh, they talk about being gay. They talk about, age issues, about getting older, about how sex affects you as you get older, whether you have different wants or desires or needs. They talk about dirty talk in a relationship. They talk about friendship. They talk about body dysmorphia. They talk about masturbation. They talk about menopause. They even talk about assault and what assault means. There's many different aspects of this, but they've somehow captured every bit of it. They even capture the moments of fantasy that this one character, she's got a fantasy that's far out there, but it's her it's what she enjoys. And the weird thing is we sort of have to figure out how to navigate this going forward in the future. I mean, especially here in America, we're so uncomfortable talking about our own sexuality, let alone those of a fictional character that we're watching on TV. And that's crazy. This affects all of us. So, I guess what I'm saying is, let's get out of our own way. Let's watch a show like this. Let's open up a dialogue, especially with the person that we're with, and let's talk about some of these things. Let's get comfortable talking about it in a way that is healthy and productive. I mean, this is a fictional show with characters, and they've somehow crafted an art piece that focuses on all of it. One of my favorite characters on the show is this gay man or a gay kid, I guess you'd say. He's the main character's best friend, who's uncomfortable about coming out to his family, and he does in the first season. And then he sort of, gets bullied heavily by this guy during most of the show. And towards the end of the show, it turns out that this kid's gay all along. He just doesn't know how to say it. He's afraid to say it. And that's why he's bullying. And there's so many moments of it that is real and human. And we're so quick as people to point and laugh and push each other away. They talk about slut shaming in this. I mean, they discuss everything. And they do it in a way that allows for conversation to happen, which I enjoy. So anyway, I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear. This is the Stuff I Heard podcast, and I am your host, Josh Peak. If you enjoy this, please let me know. If it pisses you off, hey, keep that to yourself. Or better yet, I'll use my dad's idea. Take your little comments, write them on a piece of paper, roll it up in a $100 bill, and mail it to No Cash. He would greatly appreciate it and can use it for positive use. How about that? Tell him I sent you. All right? So, thank you for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends. And that's it. Take care. Cue the cow, baby. Moo. Is that cool? I hope so. You get what you pay for. This is free. So.